You've done the work. Why doesn't it feel like it? So you've done the work, the books, the therapy, the retreats, the journaling. You understand yourself and how you got here, but somehow it just doesn't feel like it. So I feel like I've read every book. I racked up diagnoses trying to figure out what was wrong with me in adulthood. I went to the weekend retreats and I still couldn't change whatever it is. So I'm a bodyworker and a craniosacral therapist. What I've learned is that my hands often know what a person's nervous system is doing before they do. As a craniosacral therapist, I've worked with people's bodies for a living, and what I've felt under my hands has taught me more about this than anything I have read. So I feel like I've been on both sides. I've lived the gap and I've felt it resolve in my own body and in the bodies of the people I work with. And by the end of this, you're going to understand why knowing isn't enough. And you're going to have a name for what's actually been missing. So I'm so glad you're here. But no, this isn't about doing more work. It's about why the work you already have done hasn't landed yet. So I want to talk about what it actually felt like on the inside, in that gap between the understanding and the changing. And then I'll share what I feel in people's body when they've done the work, but it hasn't quite yet landed. And then I'm going to share the thing that finally made sense for me and my clients, and how I built something that is more accessible to everyone. Starting at about age 17, probably even before then, I started reading books, trying to study psychology, child psychology, developmental psychology, went to counselors, therapists, psychiatrists, psychologists, exhaustive education, took courses, got degrees. I did everything I could think of to understand how my childhood development affected me as an adult and how I could fix it somehow. I needed to understand it enough so I could fix it and move forward and finally live this life that I only dreamed of, that I couldn't quite yet grasp. And for all the striving and all the understanding and all the studying, I couldn't quite reach it. Couldn't quite reach it. And the reason why I couldn't reach it is because I've never felt it before. So when we develop, normally, we hope that we get nurturing, safety, awareness, love, right? But if we grow up and that was never put there, then we have no reference point to go after. Like there's no template for it. But we have these big cognitive brains, these super brains that can map out what we think that should feel like and that destination that we want to be. But we have no paved road to get there because there was no reference point for it in our development. It just doesn't exist. There's nothing to fix. It just never was even there. Like, how do you know? Imagine if you never tasted a banana, how would you know what it tastes like? And then if you had a banana, how would you know it was a banana unless someone told you? And then how would you know if you wanted it again? Because you have no reference point of, oh, this is what a banana tastes like, right? So here I am chasing bananas that I never tasted before and probably had plenty of them, but didn't even know it, right? This is what happens in the nervous system, is that you're chasing after, and for me it was chasing. I'm chasing after something that doesn't exist in my template or in my programming. So I am running circles trying to solve this problem that I don't have a lived experience for. So I kept finding myself in things that were familiar, and my system recognized familiar. If my development was from a place of dysfunction, that's what was familiar. And this body felt in me like, oh, that's familiar. And that's what I would go towards, right? Because I didn't understand that that was not safety. My system that was the only reference point it had for anything anywhere near safety was, oh, it feels familiar. And then I would pursue those relationships and those situations, again, relentlessly trying to make the outcomes different. And I would land myself right back in the same spot over and over again. That's the exhaustive loop. And when we continue to kind of talk about what happened to us, it reinforces that loop. And talking about what happened to us is okay. Like that is a fundamental part of healing. But at some point, you understand it. You understand why you're here. And continuing to reinforce, okay, I understand why I'm here, why I'm here, why I'm here, keeps you here, right? Keeps you in that state. It kept me in that state. And that woman was so sure she was going to figure it out. She'd just keep going over and over and over it until I figured it out. And I did, like intellectually figure it out. But I could not choose anything different for myself because I had no template. So the work is important to understand that something happened with you developmentally, or maybe something came along and changed your course of development through a trauma, whatever it is. It's important to understand that and do the work. Then you're ready to take the next step. That's what I've seen a lot on my bodywork table as I've worked with people in EMS, EMTs, paramedics. And if they were coming to me still in those jobs, in other words, the threat was still present in their life, my work would not land with them. They couldn't recognize the work was landing with them because it felt like threat. So I would physically feel their nervous system shift down into a place of rest and digest and safety, and they would get up off the table and they would leave and never come back. And this happens because the threat is still there. Even if it's just perceived threat, it's still there. This mechanism of not letting our guard down and keeping us safe was there for a reason. It's what got us into adulthood and through whatever we went through. If we're still actively in that threat, or if we don't have the awareness that our nervous system is acting as if it's still under threat, if that work isn't realized, then the downshift never happens. And then when I worked with people who retired from those fields, I noticed that they started doing the work and understanding, that beautiful understanding that we have about why we are the way we are. So how this would work in practice is that I would follow their body. I could sense the areas of their body light up when we have a conversation. And so a lot of my body work involves having a conversation with you that sounds like an everyday conversation and me following the body tension patterns. And so we don't drive towards what's wrong with you and I go and attack that part of the body. I'm literally just listening to everyday conversation and feeling how that shows up and lights up in the body. When someone's done the work, they'll notice their nervous system shift down and suddenly the talk will stop because the thoughts in the body are integrating in my hands. The talk will kind of stop and they'll notice, they'll go, wow, this feels really different. And in my interpretation, they're feeling safety for the first time. And it's so beautiful. I don't give them that terminology. I let them come to that themselves. And then those clients come back again and again and again because they're starting to titrate in this felt sense of safety that they never knew. They finally tasted a banana and they're like, I like a banana. I'm going to keep coming back for that banana. And then they realize I can get a banana anywhere and they can get all their own bananas. Like, this is how this works. It gets you out of the cognitive loop of trying to solve the problem with your brain, because then all of a sudden your nervous system gets to taste something different and go, huh. But if you taste that when you're under threat, you won't recognize it as something good. If it's unfamiliar, it's going to be a threat. So this is why, for me, somatic work by itself was re-traumatizing sometimes. The somatic work I experienced re-traumatized me. The therapy at some point was just re-traumatizing too, talking it out over and over again. Marrying the two, putting the two together so they coexist, is what allowed my system to go, oh, we can coexist? Well, then let's explore with curiosity something else. When I see this happen on the table, it is the sweetest thing. It's like if you've ever seen a baby that was just having a fit and then all of a sudden they got fed and they just get soothed. That's literally what it's like. And in that moment, new neural pathways are being created. A new template is being created. It's really so remarkable. So craniosacral therapy, body work works on the table. I've seen it work, but it does require money, time, and access to a practitioner. And for some of us, body work doesn't feel quite right or safe sometimes. But accessibility is a problem. And so accessibility was a problem for me. There's not a ton of craniosacral therapists in my area. And so I wasn't able to find someone. So I kept searching for something that would create this feeling again. So I started doing what I call NeuroSomatic Art. It's so accessible. Anyone can do it. It doesn't cost any money. And I'm so excited to share it with you. Because here's the thing. Somatic work is great, but somatic work tells you to get out of your head. And for people with developmental trauma, it's just unhelpful. Because it's like you're being asked to drop the only thing that kept you safe. Therapy is great because you get to understand why you are the way you are. It reveals why you feel so different in the world, but it keeps you in the loop of revisiting it often. Your thinking brain, my thinking brain, problem solved its way into adulthood. It got degrees, read the books, never stopped trying to find the road. So honor that piece of it. Honor it. It did its job. The issue is it was doing it alone without the body having a road to meet it on. The road we're trying to build is a road where there's an environment that is safety of expression without consequence. So what does this mean? So there's so many minute decisions that we make all day long. What to eat, what to watch, where to go, what job to hold, bigger decisions as well. And with someone with developmental trauma, we tend to always operate for the worst case scenario for when the other shoe drops and always scanning for threat, right? Always. We cannot express ourselves without considering the consequence in every situation. And that mechanism kept us safe. But it never got the message that we made it out. All right, so neurosomatic art is that bridge, is that road. So what we do is we take a thought, a word that doesn't have any direct association, obviously, to any trauma, right? And we hold the word and we think about the definition and we think about what it means to us and the associations. And as we independently hold that thought, We then scan the body, all right? And these are two independent thoughts at this point, right? The body and the thought are two independent things at this point. But we scan the body and just see, oh, I feel tension here, I feel this here, I feel this light up there, I feel tightness, it feels warm, cold, whatever the sensation is, you start to hold that sensation here, right? And then you start to consider putting those together. So you hold that independent thought, pull up all those feelings out in the body, channel it through your most dominant hand, and it comes out in explosions of color and shapes and lines onto the piece of paper without any rules, without any judgment. You can use a Post-it note to do it, and suddenly you've created something from nothing with no consequence. Some ink on a Post-it note, a sketchbook, whatever. There was no purpose to it. There was no meaning making. There was no greater thing this was supposed to be perfect for. It just comes out. And suddenly you've created something new. So neurologically, what that does is open up this mechanism of new pathway. That creativity from a true raw place, not a template, not a tutorial, just this raw expression, now turns on the neurosomatic mechanism that allows your nervous system to consider a new path, to consider a new way of processing information. And so it's just a 5-minute exercise that we start with to titrate this mechanism in, not to overwhelm. It's small, it's safe, it's repeatable, and it's time limited so that you don't overwork it, you don't judge it, you don't quantify it, you don't say what it's supposed to be, you don't judge if it's ugly or not. It literally just is. It came from nowhere. It wasn't supposed to be anything, right? And you do this in 5 minutes a day, starting with the foundational exercises. And then you can take that work deeper. But before long, what you'll find out is that you're experiencing safety of expression without consequence on a little piece of paper with a scribble, titrated in slowly. And once those new roads start to open, suddenly that big plan you put together in that big brain that you couldn't quite make happen all the way, you have a new vehicle to get there. And that just makes all the difference. So you've done all the work and it doesn't feel like it. Well, it doesn't feel like it because the feeling was never built. Not because you didn't try hard enough. Not because something is wrong with you. But because the road literally didn't exist. So I welcome you to my community to learn how to do this simple little thing. That was a lot of words to explain a really simple practice that provides you with safety of expression without consequence, which ultimately changes everything. See you soon.